My mum demanded that I share my late dad's money with my half-brother and sister, or I have to move out of the house in a week. A little background before I tell you what happened. I'm 17 years old. I live with my mum, who is 43, my stepfather, and my half-brother and sister, with whom I'm not close. My half-brother, let's call him Jackson, is a year older than me, and my half-sister, Emma, is 2 years younger. We all go to the same school, but we don't have any mutual friends and we've never been really close. My mum married their father after almost 5 years of dating. The wedding took place 3 years ago, but our families have been together for 6 years, and the wedding itself was just a formality. As for my father, he's sadly no longer with us. I barely remember him because he died when I was very young. My parents never married, and my father's family disapproved of my mother because she was a party girl at the time and had a bad reputation in their town. So they just lived together for a short time but never married because my father's parents would likely have cut him off. At 27, he was diagnosed with late-stage leukemia, and it was too late to do anything about it. Luckily, he had enough time to get his affairs in order and set up a college fund for me so that my mother wouldn't have to work hard to pay for my education after his death. I always knew about this money. My father's lawyer told me when I was a child. The money was managed by my father's lawyer, and after I turned 18, full control of the fund was transferred to me. For a long time after my father's death, it was just my mother and I got used to it. Then my father came into our lives. I was about 8 years old then. After some time, we all started living together. My mother moved from our previous town because it was too painful for her to stay where she met my father. I never met my paternal grandparents because they showed no interest in me. We would occasionally visit my mother's parents. They were nice enough, but her family as a whole wasn't particularly close. So when I moved in with Kochum and his children, I had high hopes. I thought I'd finally have a big, real family. Unfortunately, my new family didn't live up to my expectations, and I don't blame them for that. But for me, it was a big disappointment. When I was little, it's not that they didn't accept me or treated me badly, but there was always something off between us. We all lived together, but it never felt like family, and I never managed to establish a connection with either my stepfather or his children. They never made an effort to make me feel comfortable. They didn't even try to get to know me better. I tried a few times myself, but they weren't particularly enthusiastic. And after a couple of months, I just gave up. I'd resigned myself to the fact that we were more like roommates than a real family, and I had no illusions. With my mother, however, it was different. They treated her differently. There was a completely different energy flowing toward her, and she was truly accepted into the family. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think part of the reason my stepfather and his children so happily accepted my mother, pretending to be a happy family with her while excluding me, was because my stepfather's ex-wife was a complete nightmare. I've never met her, but I've heard about her. She was a gold digger and left my stepfather practically penniless. After the divorce, he had to start his life over. And on top of that, he was left with the children. Their mother gave up custody and left them for a new lover shortly after the divorce. Meeting a woman like my mother, the complete opposite of his ex, was probably a real blessing for them all. But I didn't fit into that picture. And that's exactly how they made me feel: unwanted, unnecessary. I can't explain it with any specific examples. It was all based on my feelings and the atmosphere. I always felt that even though I was technically part of the family, I wasn't really. The only consolation was that maybe I was just making it all up. And I convinced myself of this when things got too hard. It's strange to admit, but I even envied my mother. It seemed like she'd finally found her people while I was left on the outside. After a few years, I started to resent them all because I felt abandoned. But I never discussed it with anyone. I always thought it was a small thing, and it was silly to make a fuss about it. That was life. I didn't like it, but I came to terms with it. And now, to what happened a couple of days ago. For the past couple of weeks, I've been actively choosing a college. After all, I'm supposed to graduate in a few months, and it's time to start applying. I wasn't worried about money because, as I said, my mum always reminded me about the foundation my dad left me, and I was planning to use it. But a few days ago, my mum said we needed to have a serious talk. She explained that my stepdad hadn't been able to save up enough money for his kids to go to college, so she needed me to help out and let my stepbrother and stepsister use the money from my college fund. Jackson was taking a year off and planning on starting college at the same time as me, and that was the main topic of our conversation. Legally, my mum couldn't control the fund because my dad had clearly stated in his will, only I can decide how to use this money after my 18th birthday, and to be honest, I didn't want to share it with Jackson and Emma. First of all, I didn't consider them my family, and I'm sure they didn't either. Second, even if I hadn't lost the entire amount my dad left for me, I still wanted to use the rest of the money for myself. That kind of money could really give me a head start in life. I could rent my own apartment and live off of it until I could earn my own money. Besides, they had already saved a lot on me. I went to a public school instead of a private one, and my mum still hadn't spent a penny on my education. I was also a good student, so I was counting on getting a scholarship to the college I went to. I've never had any problems with money, but now that I'm turning 18 in a few months, I'm starting to think about saving and earning money. So giving part of the fund to my stepbrother and sister sounded downright stupid. I told my mum that I wasn't going to share with them because I didn't see the need. If Jackson really wanted to go to school, he could go and take out a loan to pay for it, just like millions of students. My mum didn't like my answer at all and said I was being selfish. I didn't even argue. I said that, yes, I was selfish, and there was nothing wrong with that because I didn't consider them family. That's when my mum started yelling at me because she thought what I said was practically a criminal offense. It took me a few seconds to realize. She literally went crazy just because I honestly said that I didn't consider them my family. The double standards were off the charts. They treated me like a stranger for 8 years and she didn't care, but I was obliged to treat them like family for no reason. I tried to speak calmly, without yelling, but it was no use. She was already showering me with accusations, calling me ungrateful, etc. I waited until she had yelled enough and said, "Let her yell as much as she wants. I won't change my mind. All she would achieve by yelling is to push me away even more and completely kill my desire to help in any way." Mum calmed down a bit after these words, and I thought that now we would have a normal conversation where I would finally be able to express my feelings. But it was naive. I forgot that in this house my feelings didn't mean anything at all, and all that mattered was that my mother, and therefore my stepfather, were happy. My happiness was of no use to anyone, and when Mum came to her senses, she said that I had a week to change my mind. Otherwise, she would have to throw me out of the house. I thought she was joking, because it sounded simply ridiculous, but Mum said that she was serious. Since my 18th birthday was less than a month away, soon she would not even be legally obligated to let me live with them, because I would no longer be a minor. This meant that I would be thrown out of the house, and I would be left completely alone, unless I agreed to share the college fund that my father had left exclusively for me. I couldn't believe that my own mother would say that to me and put me in such a terrible position just for the sake of my step-siblings, when I was supposed to be the closest person to her. She told me that I should be careful and think it through, because this decision could cost me everything. Then she left the room and I was left sitting there trying to digest her words. It was incredibly humiliating that my own mother would treat me like that. And that day I made a firm decision. I'm leaving this house, no matter what it takes. I started talking to my friends and told them that I needed help finding my own apartment because I was planning on moving out by my 18th birthday. I told them everything my mother had said and explained how urgent my situation was. I knew that as soon as I turned 18, I would get all the money and I would be able to decide for myself where to spend it. Yes, I'll have to live on a budget and carefully choose my college major, but it's worth it because at least now I'll be able to live on my own and not have to put up with my family, or rather, make them put up with me. After that conversation with my mum, it became completely clear that I was an unwanted person in this house, just unnecessary. All these years, I wasn't winding myself up at all. On the contrary, I actually underestimated the situation because I couldn't have foreseen how things would turn out. A couple of days later, a friend told me she'd talked to her cousin, who was also applying to the same colleges as me because we shared similar interests. She'd planned to live separately from the start, and my friend suggested I contact her. If we both got into the same college, we could rent an apartment together. I thought it was a great idea and immediately wrote to her cousin. We discussed everything, and I told her about my situation. She was very sympathetic, and I felt like she was a good person and we would get along. So the housing issue was sorted out. The only thing left to figure out was where to live until school started, since there were still a few months until college. Well, that turned out to be pretty easy to solve. My friends said I could stay with them until school started. The plan was chaotic and risky, but I was ready to do anything because it was better than living with my mother and those people. After that fight with her, their attitude towards me was just terrible. And I don't mean that they scolded me or mocked me in any direct way. No, what they did was much more humiliating. They all turned against me and behaved as if I was the most disgusting creature in the world. As soon as I entered the room, the conversations immediately stopped and everyone left. They constantly looked at me sideways and refused to talk, as if I had done something terrible. It was so humiliating that I wanted to run away. It took me a while to arrange everything, but I firmly decided that as soon as my friends were ready to accept me, I would leave this place. And when my mother came to me again and asked if I had changed my mind, I decided to tell her the truth and leave. I said that I had not changed my mind and that I was really going to leave home. I told her that the way she and her family had been treating me for the past week was insane and I couldn't take it anymore. I told her I'd already talked to my friends and would be staying with them until college started and I could leave for good. I told her I didn't want to see her anymore, so she could kick me out. It wouldn't change anything for me. I already had a plan, so I wasn't that surprised when my mum started yelling at me again and told me I had to get out of her house because there was no room for selfish, ungrateful brats like me. I left quite willingly and was happy to see them all for the last time. But that wasn't the end of my plan. Every day I spent alone in my room, I thought about how to get revenge on my mum. Ever since she married my stepfather, my life had changed, and not for the better. But she didn't care, because she was happy with her new family. I tried to be happy for her and suppress my feelings, but it was obvious now. She didn't care about me at all. Her stepchildren were more important to her. Her attitude made me feel bad, and I decided I wasn't going to let it go. So as soon as I left home, I decided to come clean and show everyone who she really was. The only reason I waited a week to leave her house and tell her about her crazy demands was because I didn't want her to have any access to me anymore, to tell me something frustrated or make a scene. No one in their right mind would support what she told me, and I knew that once I moved in with my friend, I could safely write a post online about my mother. I described in detail everything that happened and how my mother yelled at me just because I refused to pay for her kids' education. I also mentioned that none of them had ever treated me like family, and my mum was fine with that. It was only when I did the same to them that it became a problem. I told her about her double standards, that once she had a new family, she basically forgot about me. And I added that I thought she was the most selfish person on the planet for the way she treated me, just because I said no to a completely ridiculous request. Any normal person would have said, "No, my dad left that money to me specifically. It wasn't anyone's shared money." And asking me to share it with people who never considered me their family was unfair. Maybe I would have thought about it if my stepbrother and sister had ever been kind to me, but they hadn't. I was furious and I poured it all out in one post. I knew this would be a blow to my mother, because I had a lot of followers, including my mother's friends and their children. But at the time, I didn't care. I wanted revenge. To be honest, she was my only source of support and joy my entire life because I only had one parent and I had no contact with my grandparents. She was my first and most important friend. So when she chose my stepchildren over me, it was a huge betrayal. I was incredibly hurt and I just wanted to get it all out. Without thinking about the consequences, I wrote a post and exactly what I expected happened. I received several messages from my mum. She screamed that I had ruined her life. After all, everyone had seen the post and it had spread among all my relatives and friends. My mum was quite popular in her circle, and it's no wonder that people were just waiting for an excuse to gossip about her, and I handed it to them on a silver platter. She tried to call me several times, but I didn't answer or respond to her messages. I felt incredibly bad, and I hoped that writing this post would at least ease the feeling a little. But after my mum's messages, I felt worse. I started to doubt my decision. From what she said, I could tell that it really hurt her. She wrote that she never expected this from me, that she thought she raised me to be kind and compassionate, but I turned out to be the complete opposite. And now she can't even believe that I'm her daughter. And then she brought out the heavy artillery and said that if my father were alive and saw such an evil and vindictive nature in me, he would be terribly disappointed and would not even want to know me. Those words hit me really hard, and I felt like I was doing something terrible. I started to rethink everything, and that's why I ended up here. Now I don't even know if I did the right thing by refusing to share the fund with my step-siblings. I don't know if I should try to fix my relationship with my mum and the others, because I'm not even sure I can look them in the eye after what I did. But on the other hand, maybe it's just a very clever way of manipulation. And if so, then it definitely works. That's why I'm turning to you. I don't know, I did the wrong thing by refusing to share my college fund with my stepbrothers and writing a post against my mother. So, before we continue, I suggest I answer the question right now. I'm thinking about what I would do in the heroine's place, and probably yes. I would also refuse to help my stepbrothers and sisters, but nevertheless, I probably wouldn't write such devastating posts. Of course, you can say 100 times that it was right, that my mother deserved it, but nevertheless, I don't know, I still wouldn't do it. After all, despite everything, the heroine of this story herself says that her mother was her best friend at first. So why not remember those times and at least not do this because of that? But on the other hand, it's clear that being kicked out of home is very, very unpleasant. What would you do? Write in the comments and we'll continue. Update 1. Hello everyone, and thank you so much for your responses. Many of you wrote me very kind messages, and it helped me feel better and realize that I did the right thing. I think I needed it, to finally see things for what they are. I almost gave my mum a second chance, simply because I wanted to see the good in her and believe that she was a good person. But what kind of mother says and does the things she did? She's just not a good person, and it's time to accept that instead of fighting the obvious. So I blocked her so she couldn't contact me anymore. I knew that if she wrote again, it would only be to manipulate me or force me to delete the post. I don't want to delete this post. I want it to stay, at least until she apologizes to me. She knows where I am because my friend's mum told her I'm staying with them. She knows how to find me. So if she still hasn't tried to contact me, it means she doesn't care about me and only cares about her reputation. Update 2. It's been 2 weeks since I moved out of my stepdad's house and have been staying with a friend. I've had absolutely no contact with any of my family since that post. I've been to school a couple times and bumped into EMA, but she'd just give me the creepy look and pretend I didn't exist. Not surprising, considering they were already great at pretending I didn't exist. They've been doing it for the last 8 years. It must be even easier for them now. Anyway, my mum finally came to visit me last night. She showed up with a black plastic trash bag and threw it in the living room, saying it was all my leftover stuff that I didn't have time to grab when I left the house. It was a shame she put my stuff in a trash bag. And what's even more humiliating is that she just dumped everything on the floor. My friend and her parents, who saw it all, were shocked. They didn't like my mother's behavior at all, and they themselves got into an argument with her. They told her that considering I was her only daughter, she should have shown some compassion instead of treating me so cruelly. They really shamed her. But my mother, of course, took it very badly. She told them that they had no right to discipline her when they had taken in a delinquent like me. I almost burst out laughing when I heard that, because I had never broken any rules. I was an excellent student, and my mother knew it very well. I was about to remind her of that myself, but I didn't have to. My friend stood up for me. She scolded my mother and said that she was grateful to fate that her parents had nothing in common with my mother and that they had a heart. In the end, everything escalated into a squabble, after which my mother left all pouty. I was incredibly grateful to my friend and her parents. I think they weren't obligated to stand up for me, but they did, and I am immensely grateful to them. This was probably the first time in my life that someone actually fought for me, and it touched me deeply. But either way, I doubt my mum will show up here again, because after a reception like that, I definitely wouldn't have come here. And I really hope she really doesn't come back, because I'm tired of all this drama. I want to move on with my life and start a new chapter, but I can't do that if she keeps showing up over and over again. So I'm praying and hoping that this was the last time we see each other. Update 3. Hey everyone. It's been a while. I was gone for a while. A couple months, I think. That's because I was applying to colleges and trying to get into places that would give me a good scholarship. I worked really hard, and it paid off. I'm now in my first choice college, and yes, I'm sticking to the plan I made months ago. My friend's cousin, who also applied to the same colleges as me, got in here too. We're going to move in together. She's a really sweet girl, and being my friend's cousin is the icing on the cake, because it means I'll be able to stay in touch with everyone. The last few months have been incredibly difficult for me emotionally, but my friends have helped me through it all, and I can't tell you how grateful I am to have them in my life. I know that many people with terrible parents and families find emotional support in their friends, but I used to try to avoid that. However, now that I've seen how far my friends are willing to go for me, I feel like they are my real family. I will always be grateful for everything people have done for me. Honestly, I don't think I could have achieved so much without their help. It's weird and even funny, but my own mother hasn't bothered to even text me since I moved out. She didn't care, even when I unblocked her and she had a chance to talk to me. That's how little I mean to her. And you and my friends have told me to believe in myself and that I can handle it. It's funny how strangers on the internet have done more for me than my mother ever did. But anyway, all that's in the past now. I'm looking forward to a new beginning and what the future holds for me. Well, that's it. And I still hope that my mother will come to her senses and come back to her daughter after some time. I think the likelihood of that is not the smallest. Well, she'll live with this guy for a while and then suddenly, maybe, she'll come to her senses. Because it seems like she's under his charm, influence, and simply can't make an adequate decision. So I can say that at the very least, it was right that the heroine finally unblocked her mother, because in most stories, everyone just blocks each other and that's it. They just don't want to communicate in any way in the future. Thank you for listening to this story to the end. Watch our previous videos, which you can see here. Be sure to subscribe to our channel if for some reason you haven't already. And good luck to you.